Hi everyone, Happy New Year. It seems a long time ago now. I'm going to try and share the screen. And here we go. Okay, everyone got that okay? So I'll give you a quick update on Jakarta E9 again. I did the same on the last call. It's been Christmas in between, but I'll give you an update of where we are. So Jakarta E9, we're calling it a tooling release. The reason for that is, we think it's a good opportunity to update all the specifications for the namespace change without, bringing any new specifications at this point, and without bringing any other breaking changes to specifications other than the namespace change. And this is really to give opportunities for tools like IDEs to build some tools around moving from JavaX to Jakarta. Also gives people like Pyara and others to explore how we can provide compatibility for old applications that are still running in the namespace on our runtimes. And the advantage of Jakarta EE, Java EE, is it's a managed runtime, and it may give us opportunities to mitigate some of the namespace change issues. And because it will be a stable platform with no other breaking changes, then developers out there can also use this as a target for their application migration. So Jakarta E9 will then give you that interim release where you can look at how you would change your application up for Jakarta E9 without any other breaking changes. Where we are at the moment is just before Christmas. There was a big mad panic to get the release plan out. The release plan now is in voting, and I think the vote ends either today or tomorrow or sometime this week. And it's looking like most people have voted for, and no one's obviously voted against. So this is likely to go ahead in its current form. So the content in more detail of what we've got is we are pruning a number of legacy APIs from Jakarta E9, mainly around XML registries and things like that. There's more detail in the actual release plan. I haven't got time to go into each API here. There was also a lot of debate around bringing in APIs from SE8, which are no longer in SE11, so XML binding, activation, web services. And through a lot of feedback from the community, we've decided both to bring those into Jakarta E9 and move them into Jakarta namespace, but also then, as a consequence of that, to require Java SE11 support for platform compatibility. So essentially, it makes more sense to target Java SE11 if we are bringing in XML binding, activation, and web services. Otherwise, we would get in a mixed mode with SE8 and as the base platform. Individual APIs, as I've said on the slide, they will be released in a format suitable for use with JDK8. So what that essentially means is they'll be compiled JDK8 source compatible, and class file compatible. So you'll be able to use them in JDK8, but the actual runtimes that want certification will need to certify on Java SE11. We're also following the Big Bang rename, so everything that is included in Jakarta E9 will be moved to Jakarta namespace, including, as I said, XML binding and activation. So we're intending to release in a number of phases. Again, there's a lot of detail in the release plan that goes into waves and which APIs will be first, but in general, we're looking to get release candidate API jars in the Jakarta namespace onto Maven Central as soon as possible. So as soon as an API jar has been moved to the namespace, they're able to push out release candidate API jars without going through like formal review and those sort of things. Really, so that we can get it into the hands of people that want to play with these, see if they work. Also, to get it into the later APIs that come along, we'll need obviously something in the Jakarta namespace for all their dependencies, so that they can, move their API jars into the Jakarta namespace. So you should see API jars appearing in Maven Central pretty soon. And each individual spec can, when it's ready, it can release its final at any time. You don't need to wait for the full platform, subject to the normal Eclipse Foundation specification process. Again, Eclipse Glassfish will start as soon as these API release candidates start appearing in Maven Central. Also, we do have a staging as well. Then, the Eclipse Glassfish project will start picking these up and incorporate them into Glassfish itself. And then when we've got all of them sort of done, we intend to create a full platform release candidate. And that full platform release candidate will, obviously called both web profile and full profile, include the API jars, a compatible implementation, and the TCKs. And at that point, we will sort of pause and give ourselves a couple of months with a release candidate for people to bash on it. And if there's any problems, that'll give us a breathing space to fix anything before final release in 2020. So 2 months later from the RC. So that targeting at the moment Q2 2020. That's our target date. We don't know what we don't know. So again, take that date as it is, which is where we're aiming for. Who knows where we'll hit? We may hit early, we may hit late. But the final release will obviously include all the spec documents, all the final jars, a compatible implementation, which is a requirement, which then passes the TCK. And as I say, we're hoping to do that in Q2 2020. So the project's kicked off. Like I say, the release plan is under vote. People are starting to do work, and we're tracking it on a project board in GitHub. This is the URL of the board. And there's a number of pull requests already made for quite a lot of the sort of what we call the first wave API jars, which are essentially the API jars with the least dependencies. And this board, I think, only got set up about a day ago, so it's pretty hot off the press. But progress will be able to follow on that. We do have a staging repo as well set up called jakarta.oss.sonotype.org, I think. And API jars will appear in there first, and then they'll move into release candidates into Maven Central for you to pick up publicly. And so, because Jakarta EE9 is now Eclipse, we're in, it's fully open source. You can be part of it. I put some URLs just for reference. So a lot of the conversation around the EE9 release in totality will happen on the platform list, which is on there. We do have a community list, which is just for general, chat around Jakarta, and then each individual spec has its own mailing list associated with its project and with its repos on GitHub. We are, looking for people to contribute. You can contribute to code, you can contribute to TCK, you can Jakartaize the spec documents, which someone will be going into on this call. Similarly, when the RCs come out, you can start playing with them, mess with them, raise issues on them. I mean, fundamentally, Jakarta EE is open source now. Just one final comment is that while we're doing Jakarta EE9, we can also start looking at Jakarta EE10 and gathering ideas and new features that we want to release as EE10. And it'd be, the intention for us is to release, EE10 quite quickly after EE9 if we can. So the EE10 work doesn't have to stop while we do EE9. That's all I've got. So back to Tanya.